Bianca Ellis did not like what she heard at the police department, so she leaves. And the evidence is going to show, ladies and gentlemen, that she went directly to Volunteers of America. You will hear the testimony from Diane Spihar, who is one of the managers of Volunteers of America. And on that particular day of June 3rd, 2024, she was working in the back, sifting through stuff to put out for sale. And Bianca Ellis comes back. Well, the evidence is going to show through video that prior to going back to the Volunteers production area, Bianca Ellis had spent several minutes sifting through a bin of knives, and she chose 2 knives. You will see that, ladies and gentlemen. You will see her in Volunteers of America walking up and down the aisle. She had a conversation with Diane Spihar, looking for a bathroom. The evidence is going to show, ladies and gentlemen, that she left Volunteers of America and that she went to Things Outlet. And you will have the opportunity to look at that video. Bianca continued to go into the store. She looked around, and you will see the video of that. She didn't chat with anybody, but she leaves. The evidence is going to show, ladies and gentlemen, that as she leaves, there is a cement pillar. And I want you to pay attention, because she takes those 2 knives and she hits them against the cement pillar to see their pliability. One knife that she had stolen drops to the ground, but she keeps the 12-inch butcher blade knife in her hand. The evidence is going to show, and the video corroborates, that she walks in to Giant Eagle. And you will see through the videos, from the customer service angle, you will see inside the store where Margot Woods and Julian are shopping. You will notice, ladies and gentlemen, in the video, Bianca Ellis coming in to Giant Eagle, and she's got the 12-inch butcher knife. And she has it right by her side, and she's walking, and she's walking. And you will see in the video, ladies and gentlemen, that Margot had paid for her groceries. She had her hanging basket on her cart, the child in the seat of the cart, walking out, going to load her groceries and go home. I want you to pay attention to the video. As Mrs. Wood is walking out with Julian, and they're actually having a conversation, Miss Ellis passes them going this way. For lack of a better word to describe, she would be going west, and they are coming east. And so therefore, she sees them walking, and she turns immediately around. And she follows them all the way out of the store. And you will see that she is walking in tandem with them. There'll come a point in the video where you will see that she is walking faster, so she passes them. She stops, waits for them to catch up, and follows them completely out of the store. The cameras outside, ladies and gentlemen, pick up that Margot goes down one aisle. Mrs. Wood is going down the aisle where her minivan is parked, and the evidence will show that this defendant is right on her heels, walking right behind her. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is going to show the witnesses are going to testify that they observed Bianca Ellis approach Mrs. Wood and Julian, and she goes and takes the knife and stabs Julian in the face. Miss Woods tries to fight her off. She stabs Mrs. Woods. And there are independent witnesses that were in the parking lot that sees her stand over Julian on the ground and plunge a knife into his back. And those are common, ordinary citizens that were there grocery shopping or going to grocery shop. Of course, screams were heard throughout the parking lot. People are screaming to call 911, and you will hear from Travis Bush, who sees the stabbing. You will hear from Matthew Stroud, who sees the stabbing and tells his wife to call 911. They all run over. You will hear from Cheryl Molaski. She's a nurse. She runs over. She's one of the first people that runs over, and she says that Miss Woods has that baby so tight that there is blood pouring out of that. She tells them, you've got to put it down, and they start compressions. You will hear from Miss McClaskey. You will hear from Miss Craven. They are both nurses. One is a pediatric ICU nurse. She relieves her. They take turns. The police arrive. Meanwhile, the other witnesses are going to testify that after stabbing that child, Miss Ellis, taking her knife that is now clad in red blood, and she walks away. Just walks away very nonchalantly. The police now have surrounded the parking lot, and they tell her to stop. She immediately takes the knife and throws the knife. The same weapon that she used to kill Julian. She's arrested. She is taken into custody. Police officers will come in and they'll testify to their life-saving measures that they tried to use on the child. You will hear from officers that took crime scene photographs. You will hear from officers, drone footage was taken of the area. You will hear from Shayna Gray from the medical examiner's office that'll talk about the trace evidence that was found and DNA. The DNA that matches Bianca Ellis. You will hear from Dr. Elizabeth Mooney, who's the medical examiner, an assistant medical examiner here in Cuyahoga County, who will tell you what the cause and the manner of death is.
All right, we'll pause it there and quickly turn to Florida for the Spencer hearing for convicted killer Jose Soto Escalera.
So as y'all can see, like we watching this on Court TV, and of course they want to bless us with their commercials and their commentary and things of that nature. So okay, and they moved to the Jose trial, then they moved to something else.
And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, you will hear from Dr. Stephen Nausinger, who is the state's witness, rebuttal witness for this not guilty by reason of insanity. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Pateo and I have the burden of proof. We accept the burden of proof. The charges for you to consider in this case are those of aggravated murder, murder, felonious assault, child endangering, attempted murder of Margot Wood, felonious assault of Margot Wood, tampering with evidence, and theft. Ladies and gentlemen, the state is confident that when you hear all the evidence in this case, and again, I ask you, pay attention to actions and to words. They're very, very important in this case. And when you do that, you will find Bianca Ellis guilty beyond a reasonable doubt for each and every count of this indictment. She knew what she did. She appreciated the wrongfulness of her actions. You be the judge of her actions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Let's go to
So there's the opening statements that we have. So, you know, the prosecution team is saying, hey, she knew exactly what she was doing. She knew everything that she was doing was wrong. And yeah, so this is going to be, you know, a little different, you know, for us, because I can see where we can, you know, in most situations, we are kind of like, that person guilty, throw them up under the jail. We are done. Why are we here at trial today? This is going to be a little different because I can see where people sympathize on all sides because of the way our society and our mental health system is set up. So I just want to be respectful in regards to, you know, even though she has done something so horrific, right? I can imagine where people sympathize with her and also the family at the same time. So we are, once again, having our lunchtime special. So make sure you get your questions and everything ready for our Rachel. She be here today. She can't change her name, but every 2 weeks, whatever the requirement is on YouTube. But Rachel be in the house today. And she is going to talk to us about all of this great stuff during one of our breaks. It might be my lunchtime. It might be your dinner time. It might be somebody else's breakfast time, depending on where you at. But either way, she going to be here today and talking to us about it. So make sure y'all got to get your questions and everything together as we're going through. And I mean, you know, she here, right? So we can always pull her up. All right, I am going to get us into our closing, not our closing. Look, I'm about to say our closing arguments. Get us into our the defense's opening statement, and let's see what he knows.
You'll hear from her mother.
I mean,
Bianca Ellis is 34.
Kind of like with the whole entire case. I feel some type of way about all of it. So, okay, so let's listen to our defense opening statement and see what are they claiming. You know, and just think about this once before we get into this defense opening statement. Remember, we went into that case yesterday with Darian, the one out of Texas, you know, where they say he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And y'all seen how he was in the courtroom. I mean, this happened when he was 18. I don't know if they really even had a good insanity plea deal or not, insanity, plea for him. It seemed like he was doing a lot of illegal stuff before he did the unaliving of young little Cash. But I mean, whatever they got him medicated on, if y'all seen that court hearing yesterday, like he looked like he was out here. And he wasn't even out here on the planet that I be on sometimes. He was out here on a whole nother planet. Like, y'all know, sometimes I be out here on the planet, but he was on another planet. I don't know which planet he was on, but it just looking at him, he looked like his mind was like he just looked like out here. And he was on the planet of his own, but he didn't even come over to my planet. Because if he would have came over to my planet, I probably could have helped him a little bit, but he didn't. And whatever medication, it was just like he was stoned. I was like, I don't know what drug he taking, but I don't want no parts of it. yeah, that's right. Sometimes we go to these planets that, you be out here in space by yourself on your own little planet, like way, way out there with your thoughts and stuff. Yeah. But let's see. Let's see what we have here.
Years old. She has no felony convictions. She has suffered from mental illness since the age of 22. Diagnosed with schizophrenia. And Bianca has been treated on an outpatient basis at a place called Murders Taylor for almost 10 years. There's been a lot of ups and downs as it relates to her treatment. You'll hear from her mother, Yolanda Eggleton, and she'll come in and she'll testify the struggles of trying to get Murders Taylor to medicate Bianca. Because Bianca, when she's on her medication versus when she's off her medication, she's two different people. And she pushed hard for Murders Taylor to try to do something about Bianca being on medication. And Murders Taylor's response was, she doesn't represent a danger to herself or others, so there's nothing that we could do. She'll tell you how she lost contact with Bianca over the course of 6 to 8 months prior to this incident. And I'll tell you that no one's going to dispute, the evidence will show that she's a mentally ill person. Between January of 2024 up until the date of this incident, June 3rd, 2024, Bianca was off of her medication. The medication, the evidence will show, stabilizes her. Bianca received a Social Security check. And what she did with that check was she traveled from the state of Ohio to the state of California. She traveled from the state of California back to Ohio, and then down to Florida, and eventually back to Ohio. During that time frame, there were many occasions where Bianca exhibited mental illness. There were occasions where she would go to a particular location and try to get herself arrested because she's living in a homeless shelter, because she's living on the streets. She's trying to find structure. I think the evidence will show that during her mental illness, she tried to find places of refuge, unsuccessfully. On June 3rd of 2024, this unfortunate tragedy occurs. Just a few days before, Bianca was in the North Homestead Jail.
All right, we'll hear more from the defense in just a minute. Let me bring in our guest for this hour, attorney and former prosecutor Randolph Rice. Randolph, great to see you as always. Who has struggled with it over the years, has a diagnosis, some Now, he was stabbed in the face and back while his mother was pushing him in a
That act, in broad daylight, never trying to conceal the knife, and she doesn't run away. She walks away, with the knife in hand, still carrying the knife after this act is done. The evidence will show that there was no rational motive for her to have committed this offense. There's evidence will show that there's no relationship between she and the victims in this case. She still has a knife in hand at the time that the police confronts her. And she does drop it. Bianca's brought back to the police station. And eventually, she's interviewed. There's evidence of mental illness that occurred as a result of her responses in that interview. There's evidence that would show that she was irrational at all points of time. During that interview, while in the jail, even when she arrived in the county jail, sitting naked on the floor. Bianca displayed mental illness from the beginning of this incident, for the months prior to this incident, while in the jail. And if by chance you saw her at her arraignment, the evidence will show that even during her arraignment, she was still mentally ill because she was smiling at the arraignment. The evidence will show that she answered the judge in Spanish when being asked questions. The evidence will also show that we had a difficult time communicating with Bianca. So much so that Dr. Sarah West became involved in the case. And she had to make an evaluation of whether or not she was competent to aid in her defense. And because her mental illness was still going on, Dr. West referred her to North Coast Behavioral. North Coast is a place where mentally ill people, they're there to get restored and for other reasons, but for Bianca's purposes, it's for restoration, to get her competent so she can understand this process. So after the competency evaluation, Dr. West was requested to evaluate her for sanity. And the evidence will show that Dr. West did evaluate her for sanity. She looked at all of her prior psychiatric treatment over the many years since she was age 22, her behavior on the day of the incident, and all the other information that she took into consideration after. And Dr. West made a determination that she was insane at the time of the offense. You hear that evidence. But the state has a right to have their own doctor become involved. And Dr. Knopfsinger also made his evaluation. and he made the opposite determination. You'll have to make that determination based on the evidence that's presented in this case. You'll hear from some other doctors that dealt with her while she was at North Coast. And at the end of the day, you will have to make the determination. And I told you in the beginning during jury selection that she acknowledges through her lawyers, whether she testifies or not, that she's responsible for the murder of Julian. She acknowledges through her lawyers that she's responsible for the attempted murder of Margot. There's no running away from that. That's not what this trial is about. The evidence will show, though, that it is obvious that she was insane at the time of the offense. And no matter what your experiences have been, you have to evaluate that information. That's all we're asking you to do. Lastly, I believe that at the conclusion of this case, you will find that Mr. Johnson and I have met our burden of a preponderance by the evidence, okay? A preponderance of the evidence, and that burden is far less than what the state has to prove. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that we have it, the defense opening statement, right? Yeah, I think that we're definitely gonna have to battle of the experts. I mean, we all seen the videos of when she was down there in Florida, and it's just so troubling all the way around with this. At least for me. Everybody entitled to the way they want to feel about it, but it's just so troubling because even when I've never seen a person like, please take me to jail because I don't have nowhere to go. I don't want to go to church. I don't want to go down here. I don't want to go to any of these places. Just please take me to jail.